If you're not uncomfortable, you're not growing. My father had his own business. I think he had an idea that I was going to take over the business one day, but I ended up saying yes to the job. And I went from my comfortable life to being employed at 5,000 miles away across the Atlantic Ocean. But that was my challenge.
What do you think was happening in your head at that time? What am I signing up for? Is it the right choice?
Short answer is never.
From a tiny room in Cambridge with just 2 duffel bags to leading a multi-billion-dollar global packaging company, Ole Rosgaard's story is a masterclass in transformation. As a CEO of Greif, Ole turned a struggling business into a high-performing, people-first organization by leaning into discomfort and leading with purpose. So if you're ready to grow beyond your comfort zone, believe me, this episode is 100% for you.
A lot of leaders are not very transparent. I'm the complete opposite. Sometimes I even divulge too much information. We don't call our employees, we call them colleagues, because we believe in equality, that we all equals.
What would you say is the reason of having a very highly engaged workforce?
We have clearly demonstrated to our almost 15,000 people that.
Hi everybody and welcome back to a new episode of the World Class Leader Show. Today, I'm very excited to have, first of all, a new episode face-to-face. It's been a while since we had last one, so very excited to finally meet one of the great CEOs we have there. And today, I am so lucky to have with me Ole Rosgaard, the CEO of Greif. Since 2015, Ole has been committed to shaping Greif culture and driving its growth. With extensive experience spanning private equity and public multinational companies, he brings deep operational expertise and a focus on sustainable growth strategies. Having lived permanently in 5 different countries, and we share that, we'll discuss about that, and work across 5 continents, Ole has developed profound insights into diverse cultures, business practices, and global market dynamics. So before joining Greif, Ole was Group Managing Director for one of the world's largest roofing manufacturers, where he gained significant experience in successfully turning around and growing several underperforming businesses. Prior to that, he served as a managing director for a leading global window company group, further sharpening his leadership and strategic capabilities. A passionate lifelong learner, Ole's leadership approach is also shaped by his military training and his participation in executive programs and renewed institutions like Harvard Business School and top European organization. And we will talk about that. Ole, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Pleasure to be here.
Great. So, Ole, we had an opportunity to have a good coffee together in London, where we are today. And you told me so many interesting stories about your life, your story, and your experience, which, as always, when I meet people, is something that is not necessarily in the CV or in the background when we look at our own story. And it would be great sharing with the audience some of them. First of all, we share something in common. So we both lived in many different countries, many different continents, although our path didn't cross because you were more in Europe and US, I was more in Africa and the Middle East. I'm interested in how, this experience working around the globe has shaped who you are as a leader now.
Having, first of all, lived in so many countries and basically worked all over the world, you get to appreciate the different cultures,
Yes.
different people, different backgrounds. It makes you a much more tolerant person.
Right.
It opens your eyes. If you think of it as a horse with blinkers on, your blinkers are going away, and you get a totally different perspective on life and business and all the small nuances and the colors that you see.
Yes.
And that's helped me immensely because at the end of the day, being CEO, running a global company, it's a people business.
Yes.
You're dealing with people. Without people, there's nothing. So my focus has always been people, and having that background has really helped me.
Yes. And I appreciate that. I mean, to me, my major learning from working in so different countries, primarily from a cultural standpoint, given that Africa, Middle East is very different than where I was born in Italy, I can say that really helped me to understand different perspective, how people really think first, and then, of course, how they act. And that, to me, is a gift when you then deal with the reality of challenges in your life, but also in business. But interesting. So you are originally from Denmark, born in Denmark, then actually you are a British, you are a UK resident, but then live in the US. What's your story here?
Yeah, I grew up in Denmark. My father had his own business. It was a small business. He employed 120 people. I was the oldest son. put me through college. And I think he had the idea that I was going to take over the business one day.
Yes, it's a
I wo-
typical expectation from fathers, right?
yeah, I worked for him for a while, but for me, it didn't go so well. So I decided to, join the military. So I enlisted in the Danish military, and I spent many years there, and I had a great time. There came a point where I had to sign up for another 5 years, and I decided not to and venture out in life. The first job I got was actually to work for the leader in the world in Windows, a global window company. Today they employ about 20,000 people. And my job was to travel to the UK to start the business in the UK. And I don't know why they gave me that job to this day. I think it was something to do with that I had a background in Windows and that I had traveled and so on. But I remember when I arrived, I sat in a bed and breakfast in Cambridge, and I looked on the floor. There was 2 duffel bags on the floor. And this bed and breakfast was really small. There wasn't even a bathroom in my room. And those 2 bags represented all the belongings I owned in this world. And I got this bout of imposter syndrome. Oh my God, what am I going to do? How am I going to do
Of
it?
course.
But that was my entry into the UK. And when I left almost 17 years later, I had actually developed this company from scratch to closing in on 100 million in business. So that was how I ended up here. I met my wife in the UK, and we were both, intent on staying. All my children are born in the UK. So for all intents and purposes, it was our home. So we became British, both of us. My wife was
Right.
born in America. I was born in
Yes.
Denmark, and we became British. So, but then things happen. You end up somewhere else one day, and
Yeah, it's such a great story. And when we having a coffee together, if we translate that and transition to your career, you really mentioned that your career has been, I would say, at least from what I understand from what you share with me, I mean, your title now demonstrates it, a fast track career. It really works. You had amazing, successful career experience, progression, to the extent that you ended up in Germany in one of your step of your career and be a very successful leader with a very comfortable position. But then something happened. Why don't you walk us through that story? Because you did it with me, and to me, is such a great example how you can be, why you need to be uncomfortable in your life, in your story.
just to go back a little bit, one of the things I have learned throughout my life is if you're not uncomfortable, you're not growing. Most people can, relate that to the gym. If you go and, to the gym or you do sports, it has to hurt a little bit for you to grow or for you to become better. So in your career and in life, whether it's education, if you ask a first year student at university, he or she will say, oh, it's hard. Some will say it's too hard. But if you then ask them 3 years later, was the first year hard? No, that was, it's hard, but I'm much better now because you put yourself out of your comfort zone, you become uncomfortable. So the learning that I have accumulated in my lifetime is that you need to be uncomfortable to grow. So in Germany, years later, I worked for a very large global roof manufacturing company. I had done a lot of turnarounds. I ran most of Europe. And as you say, I was very comfortable. I had great contracts, making good money, private schooling for my kids, everything you can imagine I had. And some people would say, well, why did you want to give that up? Well, I didn't, but I got a phone call like so many people do. And,
The
you think,
famous phone call
yeah, the
that
famous
everybody
phone
has once
call.
in life.
And you get a lot of phone calls, and most of it, and I still get phone calls, but, I'm not interested. And you say no. But sometimes they hit you at the right time. And this phone call hit me at the right time. So it sparked my curiosity. The phone call led to 12 interviews and 6 tests. And basically, I ended up working for my present company, Greif. I almost didn't do it because you do your research, and the picture that emerged as I was doing my research and doing all these interviews was less than pretty. It was a company somewhat in distress, didn't do so well, but I ended up saying yes to the job. And I went from my comfortable life to being employed at will 5,000 miles away across the Atlantic Ocean, moving my family to Ohio, Columbus, Ohio, people ask me, well, why did you do that? You were very comfortable, making good money, you had everything.
Yeah.
And then suddenly you put yourself in a position where they could fire you immediately without paying you anything. But I had this need to be uncomfortable again. And I also saw a lot of opportunities in this company. I really liked the culture. They had a true people culture. Yes, they were in trouble from a business point of
Right,
view,
right.
but that was my challenge. And that's where I felt I can help and create value there, which I basically did. So now I'm sitting here talking to you as CEO of the company 10 years later. But I had a need to be uncomfortable. And I've done that many times also in my current job where I put myself in an uncomfortable
Right.
situation, basically to grow myself. And I do everything I can to help the people I represent, the people I'm responsible for, to do the same. Some people don't like it when you sort of make them uncomfortable, but it's like if you have to run a 5K race, most people don't like it, but afterwards you get this nice feeling. I achieved something, right? So that's really, what I have to say about being uncomfortable.
It's such a great story and great example. And really kudos to you because it's not easy, make that sort of decision. What do you think was happening in your head at that time? Because you said, going into the uncomfortable situation position, it brings all the questions, voice in our head in terms of what am I signing up for? Is it the right choice? Am I going to regret all of that, etc.? How did you manage that transition from I'm comfortable, I'm interested, I see something there, so I'm curious, I want to challenge myself, I want to grow, and then you made the leap. What happened in the first few weeks and months of the new experience? Did you find any moment of regret, any moment of doubt, any moment of gosh, that wasn't the right choice, etc. Despite all the good things that you're already starting to see at Greif?
Short answer is never. Um, but also, when you put yourself in a situation of being uncomfortable, you will never have all the answers that you need.
Yes.
That's not possible.
Yes.
The way I work is, when you make a decision, whether it's as a manager or as a CEO, you collect data. So all your decisions should be data driven. If you have a fear of being uncomfortable, a fear of the unknown, then you will keep collecting data. You get to 75%, 80%, 90%. The data that you want to collect from having 75% of the data towards having like 100% of the data probably never comes. And it just prolongs your decision-making progress. And it basically makes you not wanting to make a decision because you're afraid of that decision. You don't want to be in that situation. So the way I work is that I work hard at getting up to 75% of the data.
What is a kind of a sufficient threshold for you?
Then I listen to my gut. Some people call it gut feeling, but it's not really your gut that talks to you. It's your brain. Because as we work and move along and go along with our lives, our brain picks up on many, many things. It can be you in a meeting. My brain picks up on what's not being said. It picks up on small details. It could be somebody's body language. And I cannot sit in a meeting always articulating that, but my brain has picked up on it. And the brain is a wonderful instrument. It computes really fast and it tells you what it concludes before you even know it yourself. And that's what some people call gut feeling or instinct. So when I have 75% of the data I need, then I have to rely on my instincts.
Yes.
And you take a risk when you do that. And I also promote this to our organization, to all our people that I represent, almost 15,000 people. I ask them to do this. I ask them to be uncomfortable and I help them. And I also say to them, yes, you are taking a risk, but don't be afraid of failure because business is risk taking. You just have to manage it. When you make a mistake or when you fail in something, you just learn something new. And that's wonderful.
Yes.
So you learn something new and then you get back up on that horse and then you try again. That's how we develop ourselves. So never be afraid. So as a leader, you have to create a culture in an organization where people have that psychological safety net, so to speak, to not be afraid of taking risks, not be afraid of trying something new.
Yes.
And that's one of the cornerstones of my leadership, what I really work hard on achieving.
That's great. So I'd love to unpack some of the things that you said. First of all, I would say it sounds like you have found a great personal strategy to go through uncertainty by choosing to find a good balance between data, fact, and instinct or gut feeling. And it's great how you said that balance, even if it's 70%, is not equal, but give you exactly what could be a good way to make a calculated risk. It sounds like a calculated risk. That brings a little bit of uncertainty, but at least has been well thought, right? The other thing I would say is you're already talking about helping your organization, your culture of building an environment where people can fail without repercussion. They can test, experiment, going outside of the comfort zone, which many leaders say, but in their words, but they're not really acting that way. Meaning, next time if something happen and somebody fail, then there is a way or no unfortunate repercussion. But before we get to culture, if we step back a second, what's Greif? Tell us more about Greif. What is it right now? What's the company? What's it doing? What's the value? What's the future of the company?
So Greif is a 148-year-old packaging company. We've always done packaging. And what we pack is most of the things you don't see. You're sitting in a chair right now, and the seat you're sitting on is made of foam. That foam is made of a chemical called MDI. Same as the soles in your shoes. You have other types of chemicals that's used to make the adhesive that holds furniture together. Maybe you had orange juice this morning that was in your fridge. That orange juice, like the chemicals I just mentioned, have been stored and shipped in our packaging. Maybe you took some multivitamins, maybe you took some medicine. All of that has also been stored and shipped in our packaging.
Yes.
We don't do retail packaging. So when you go and buy something as a consumer, that's not the packaging we do. We do the packaging from factory to factory. When you ship bulk all over the world, that could be paint. For instance, if you have a car that's been painted, the paint has been shipped to the car maker in
Yes.
our packaging as
Yeah.
well. So we touch all aspects of life, but you just don't see us.
You live in the background.
We live in the background. Even the circuitry in your iPads on the table,
Yes.
the components there have been made out of chemicals that at some stage have been stored and shipped in our packaging.
So in other words, you are in my life.
I'm in
So-
your life every day.
You are in my life, but I
You
don't
just
say it.
don't know it.
I don't say it.
Yeah.
So what's the future of Greif? I mean, walk us through when you became a CEO from where you are right now. What do you think that impact has been made so far? And most importantly, what's the future? What's the vision that you have for the company?
First of all, we have created Greif, turned Greif into a people company. Some of the overarching strategies we have, our vision, for instance, is to be the best customer service company in the world. You can only achieve that if you have highly engaged and motivated people. In your personal life, you probably have gone to a store to buy something, a piece of clothing, for instance, where you got an awful customer service, right? What do? You go home, you tell your family or friends, don't go to this store. It was awful. And they gave you an awful service because they didn't care, the people who worked there. You probably have tried the opposite as well, where you go and buy something and you get greeted by a smiling person and the service you get is just immaculate. You get this wonderful customer service. And what do? You go home, you tell your wife, your friends, go and shop there. So the philosophy we have is the same. It starts with people. We have worked very, very hard on creating a culture of engagement, of top motivated. We don't call our employees, we call them colleagues, because we believe in equality, that we all equals. We're all in the same boat. We just do different jobs, right? We have worked with colleague engagement for a number of years now, and we are now in the top tier in engagement. We have Gallup do an engagement survey every year in our company.
Oh, wow.
And we've gone from when we started this 32nd percentile up to the now 86th percentile. And now it's getting really hard. And the last 2 years, we have been awarded a Gallup prize for that one of the highest engaged companies in the world. They score, tens of thousands of companies all over the world. I'm very proud to say
Wow.
that the last 2
You
years we
should
won
be.
an award. And we win other awards, but we have KPIs that proves we're on the right track. Once we have that, we can work with customer service. And that's the second thing we're working on. We're now on a path to becoming the best customer service company in the world. And obviously, when you're there, that drives business. Because when I go to a customer and with a price increase, for instance, that's never well received, but we get a lot less resistance because we provide this exceptional level of customer service, as opposed to if you didn't, then you would get a lot of resistance. Why should I pay you more?
Yeah, what's the
Uh,
value of
yeah,
that?
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And the other thing it brings is that often we ask for a little bit of extra business, a bigger share of the customer's wallet. And again, we get less resistance when you provide this high level of customer service. And it basically strengthens your balance sheet in the process. So it's good for your P&L. So in short terms, that's our strategy. What we're doing with the business at the moment, we're pivoting away from some of the legacy businesses we have been in into businesses or into areas that are much less cyclical. We have been in what we call container board, which is basically cardboard for you, the boxes you get your Amazon shopping in. We've recently divested that business. We also owned a lot of forests and lands in the south of North America. We have divested that, and that's given us an extremely strong balance sheet.
Okay.
And we're using that strength to transition into other areas where there's more growth and less cyclicality for the business.
So to make it more sustainable and a kind of an enduring business for the
Exactly,
future.
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
that's brilliant. So is that the reason why now Greif is a kind of a business case at Harvard? Or tell me more about that, because you said you often join and you're part of the Harvard Business School business case. So, and that's to me, you're also, you told me before in the coffee, you're very proud of being able to be, a demonstration of something that it really works.
Yeah. Well,
Tell us more about that.
part of being uncomfortable is also learning new things, and CEOs also have to learn new things. And I'm what people call a lifelong learner. The day I die, that's when I'll stop learning. So I actually now I go to Harvard Business School a couple of times a year to learn new things. And I met a lot of professors, and one of the professors decided after he got to know me to do a business case on Greif. So Harvard Business School wrote a business case on. It's got my name in the headline, but it's really about the company.
Right.
And they're teaching that. And the last 3 times, I've been invited to come to class, and it's very, I would say, exciting to sit in the back of the classroom when a business case on you is being taught. And then the last half an hour, the professor, invites you on the floor to, do Q&A with all the students. And it's something is very exciting to do.
Oh, yeah,
It's
of
also,
course.
a little bit uncomfortable when suddenly you're on the floor, but sitting in the back listening to all the students and their inputs. The input they provide is not always right, but it's data and it's input, and I get a lot out of it, a lot of
Yeah,
ideas, and I enjoy meeting other business people in that way. So,
I'm sure.
and yeah, it fills me with pride that somebody like an institution like Harvard Business School decided to write a business case on our company. And, it's something that all our people should be proud of.
Absolutely. That's a great demonstration of success. If we look at about what you said before in terms of the experience with Gallup and more than the price, but really what is because you said you have a KPIs to measure the level of impact that we're making on employees. Would you say is the reason of having a very highly engaged workforce, colleagues? Because one of the things what Gallup does every single year is measuring engagement rate, and it's still broadly across the globe, still very low. And there are a number of reasons why that happens. But if you look through the lens of Greif, what do you think has been the primary reason why people they are really engaged? So what you have created, in other words, that allow that to happen?
We have clearly demonstrated to our people, our almost 15,000 people, that we take care of them. Sometimes it's like being a coach on a sports team. Sometimes somebody has to leave. You ask somebody to leave because they are not up to scratch, and we do the same in our business. And it's one of the hardest parts of being a coach or being a leader. But even when you do that process, you treat people with dignity and respect, and because one day that person might come back as a completely different person. So what we do is some of the things I mentioned to you. We work hard to create this culture of having a psychological safety net where it's okay to take a risk. It's okay to fail. You learn something new every time it happens. We work a lot with transparency. A lot of leaders are not very transparent. The way they show they are the leader is by being secretive, by holding on to the information to show I know more than you. So I'm a
Yes.
leader.
Yes.
Um, I'm the complete opposite. Sometimes I even divulge too much information, but I do believe in transparency because
That's
everybody
great.
needs to feel part of the team. And some of the tools you have for that is that as a CEO, I travel a lot. We operate in more than 40 countries, and we have over 250, factories around the world. So when I travel, obviously I have a schedule where I see investors, I see customers, but I always go into our production. I
Yes.
go on. The first thing I do is I go on the shop floor. I walk around, and so people can see me. I got my safety gear on. I talk to people. I get into the office. I sit down with the people in the office, and then we have a town hall. And it's a great opportunity for me to communicate who we are, how we work, and what our strategy is. And then once I've done that, I'm on off to the next one.
Right.
That's also part of it. And then Gallup also helps us when they do a survey. They ask everybody 12 questions. So you have over 10,000 people. We have about 92% participation in the company. So that means
It's very
virtually
high.
everybody answers the
Yes.
survey, which
Yes.
is
Very
just,
high.
just unreal. It's very high. So they answer 12 questions. And then after we got the survey results back, we sit back with each individual team, and it's being cascaded down in the organization. And then the leader and his or her team identifies the two or three things they want to work on the following 12 months. An example could be that the team has told the leader, you don't give us enough feedback, or we don't get recognized enough. And then you need to find out, is the recognition a monetary thing? But often it's just the feedback. You don't tell us when we've done a good job. So together they make an agreement. Okay, this is what the actions we're going to take the next 12 months. And then we check in with them every 3 months to do a poll. How are you doing with your action list? And that's a kind of a continual cycle that we do. And
And you
that
keep
has
staying connected with your people in that way.
exactly. And that's helped us, get up to, the best in class level we are at now.
Great. That's really great to hear. If we go back to you as a CEO, your leadership, clearly most of the things that you are saying, they are a function of your leadership because you are a CEO. So no one better than you can shape that or should shape that. So it's something that you're doing great as a leader. However, you were telling me as well that before becoming CEO, you were a CEO. And that is one of the typical transition for leaders. So either you're coming as a CEO. Now I think it's very common the CFO to the CEO for a number of reasons, stability, control, financial, all of that. No judgment. I'm just saying that is a different traditional part. And then there are other parts, but clearly COO, CFO to become a CEO is one of the most common. But that brings challenges. And you were telling me that you've been a very operational leader, and then as a CEO in a public company, that brings a different set of challenges. Would you mind to share a little bit about that?
Sure, and I even got surprised, although I felt that I, was well prepared for being the CEO. So before I became CEO, it's just quite rightly, I was very operational.
Yes.
I was COO, and before then I was division president. So in operations, I was dealing with
Yes.
customers, with people, with operations, doing turnarounds. I never thought about investors, shareholders, and that sort of thing. And although I, thought I was well prepared to become CEO, but then I got surprised with how much time I had to spend with investors, with banks, whether it's investment banks or analysts, with the board. So you go from having one boss to having 10 bosses suddenly, and the 10 bosses are all individuals. Then you have major shareholders you need to see as well. So there's a lot of other things. And then strategy on top of that. And you have little time actually to go into operations. I still find the time to go into operations, but there's a huge necessity to be really strict with your own time.
Yes.
I could work, if I had 200 hours to work a week, I could work
You will
200
feel it.
hours. I could
Yes.
fill it easily. But obviously, I need to create a balance. I have a family as well that I need to, spend time with. And because I love my family, I love my work. So I guard my time jealously, and I become very intentional about how I spend my time. We all get email from salespeople who's doing their job and doing their best to try and sell you something. I probably get like 30 to 50 approaches each week from people who wants, to spend just 10 minutes with me. And I'm just stone cold. I don't even respond to those emails. And it's like some people say, well, it's not polite, but do you write back to all the junk mail you get in your post box that on paper? In other words, you have to be very intentional about what you spend your time on. And it's not until you become CEO, you become really aware of that. And that was a surprise to me. So that was one of the things that I quickly had to adopt to.
That's great. I mean, that also lead me to something that we discussed also briefly before is the quality of the relation that you have with your board has a huge impact on what you just describing because the great relationship really becomes collaborative, working together, appreciating, understanding each other. And I've seen a lot of CEOs working with amazing board where the alignment is there. In other circumstances where the alignment is not there, that brings not only tensions, but it has an impact on the time that you need to spend. You could probably the less good is relation with the board, and that's not your case. I'm saying generally speaking, the more time you need to invest to create that relationship, to stay closer to them. Is that very critical for a CEO, isn't it?
Some CEOs are fighting with their board, and some boards are thinking that they run the business. They get too tactical. I've seen
Yes.
that play
Yes.
out. But I believe that as a CEO, yeah, you got to do your job. You're running the business. But the 10 people you have on the board, they're all individuals. They all possess a lot of experience. And you would be a fool if you didn't tap into that experience. And so you need to work as a team with your board. What I do, I don't just have quarterly board meetings. I check in with the individual board member between board meetings. So I have a one-on-one with each individual board member, month and a half before the board meeting that's
Right.
coming up. Gives me an opportunity to check in, to hear what's going on in their world. And by that time, I have more or less got the agenda for the next board meeting sort of sorted out. And if there's one or two or three major decisions that needs to be made, or it gives me a chance to prep the board member so that they know what we're going to talk about. They know a decision has to be made on a certain topic. I can make sure that, I answer all their questions so that they feel that when they come to the board meeting, I have helped them being better equipped to do their job. And I also listen to them to see, am I missing something here? I know the decision is mine, but am I missing something here? And I get a lot of input that way. So that collaboration with the board is something I actually enjoy. And we have a great board in Greif, very collaborative. And most of the board members they come from businesses. We have our own. We have a board with either sitting or recently retired CEOs. They give me a lot of feedback. It gives me a lot of data for making good decisions as well. So
That's great. Well, thanks for sharing it. Let's go a little bit more personal. I mean, it's been already personal, but I'm always interested to understand the guest behind their title. And first of all, I want to start with that, specifically with that, because you're saying, and that's you shared a little bit earlier. So leadership is not a function of your title, or it's not a function of your position, but it's a practice. What does it mean in reality in your way of leading?
I have to go back to being a lifelong learner. Nobody is born a leader. So some people are born with good speaking abilities, or they're like very extroverted. Others are not. But being a good leader is hard work. It's an acquired skill, just like an athlete. Some athletes, yeah, they are born athletic, but that doesn't make them world-class athletes. They have to train every single day.
Yes.
They have a strict regime. They train, they eat the right way, and so on. Being a leader is the same. You have to work at it every single day. And importantly, we talked about comfort zones.
Yes.
You have to put yourself out of your comfort zone. Recently, I was invited to do a commencement speech at a university, and I'm a born introvert. So you can imagine me, thinking about that before I said yes. Oh, so I have to go on stage. I have to talk to hundreds of people. And my instinct says, I don't like that.
Right.
I don't want to do that. But then my brain takes over and says, yeah, that's being uncomfortable. That's where you learn. And so I said, yes, of course, I would do that with a smile. And I did it. And yes, before I went on stage, I was really nervous. I thought I'd made a really good speech. And you get on stage and you start talking. and the nervousness goes away. I was told that it was one of the best they've ever experienced, but I was so tired afterwards. So was I uncomfortable? Yes. Did it tire me out? Yes. But it was my job to do,
Yes.
and I worked hard at it, just like an athlete. Whereas had I been an extrovert, I would have gotten a lot of energy out of
Yes.
it. But good leaders really work hard every single day on getting better as a leader. And that means that you have to address all aspects of leadership, of your life, of you as a person. It never stops, and nobody's a born leader.
Fantastic approach to leadership. You mentioned about you be introverted. So there are a lot of leaders out there. They are like you, like many. So how can you lead an organization as an introvert?
Well, it's your job. So, it's your job. I put myself out of my comfort zone because it's my job to do that. I like people. I like helping people. That's my core. That's my core value. And I live like that. So if you are loyal to who you are, that you want to help people, you want to help people have careers, progress in their career, then whether you're uncomfortable or not, or whether you're an extrovert or an introvert, that doesn't change. It's just something you have to work at. I have a very dear colleague. She's one of my best friends at work. When I hired her, she was a total introvert. She would meet somebody in the hallway in the office, and then she would do a big white circle around them and look down in the floor
Right.
to avoid having any contact. And she got that feedback, and she was ambitious. Now she's senior executive in our company,
Wow.
and she's just doing a fantastic job. But she worked at that. She knew that she had to work at that. And I'm so she's still working at that because it's still uncomfortable when
No,
you're
because
on.
that's your
When,
orientation anyway, so
yeah,
you cannot change that.
yeah, whether
But
you're doing a podcast like this, I'm sitting, we just met today. It's uncomfortable at first and all that, but that's your job. That's how it is, and get used to it. Otherwise, you shouldn't be a leader. And one of the things I learned in the military was to embrace headwinds. You see something coming your way and it doesn't look pretty. Instead of trying to run away from it, embrace it and find the areas where you can learn new things. So you embrace it, you make it your friend, basically. And that's my approach to things. So
great. Well, I'm glad that the podcast has been also an opportunity to challenge yourself and to go outside of your comfort zone. So thank you for joining. I have a last question, which I think is critical for many leaders out there. The element of resilience in a moment of uncertainty, change, a lot of dynamics, they are changing every single day. So one of the things is happening is for many CEOs either pivoting, changing business model, needed to give answer to their people when the answer, as you said before, they're not available. All element about complexity, uncertainty is one of the things that many CEOs are bringing up in not only conversation with me, but also when I see around. What's your personal strategy or approach to personally on uncertainty? We understand because you said, I'm gonna take data, but then also I'm gonna, follow my gut feeling. But broadly speaking, if I look at you as a CEO for the entire organization, how can you help your leaders to bring certainty in a moment of uncertainty?
by being intentional, we live in what we call a VUCA world. There's a lot of uncertainty, a lot of change, makes a lot of people nervous. Some people probably want to run away from it. What I do is combine all the things we've just talked about in this podcast. Yes, it's uncomfortable, it's uncertain, but embrace it. If you stay loyal to the way you are, to being prepared to go into into a situation where you have to take some risk, and being prepared to learn from that and being prepared to adapt yourself when you've learned a new thing, and not being afraid of headwinds, but embrace them, and then take care of your people. Always take care of your people. If you employ those values, then you can almost face anything. So there will be hardship, yes. There will be moments of real uncomfortableness, yes, but you will prevail in the end if you embrace that hardship, if you're prepared to take some risk, if you're prepared to be uncomfortable.
Yes.
So for me, it's more a journey than an end destination. So you have to enjoy that journey. And I usually say to people who struggle being uncomfortable and say, well, you got to learn to be uncomfortable because it's part of your journey. And that journey will never end. There's no end destination. But if you're prepared to enjoy that and find ways to enjoy that, you will do really, really well.
Yes.
But if you don't like the environment we work in now, the uncertainty and all that, and you don't work in this way, you will probably not do so well out there.
And you think that is also the best strategy to deal with stress and pressure in a leadership role like yours?
It is, I would say, and I look at stress and anxiety as a source of energy
Okay, great.
rather than a negative. When you're nervous or when you're stressed, obviously you need to be very self-aware as well. But I do look at stress as a form of energy. And when I am a little bit anxious about something, I analyze, what am I anxious about? How can I turn that into a tailwind rather than fighting it? And then I embrace it again. So for me,
Great.
it's that source of energy that helps me be uncomfortable all the time.
Fantastic. Wow, what a great experience. So, where people should go, Ole, if they want to learn more about you, not only the company will be on the website, but if they want to be in contact with you, what you can do. I appreciate that you don't have the time to answer to everybody. Let's say that straightforward. But where should we go to learn more about you?
I got a LinkedIn profile. I'm not very active on LinkedIn, but I also, and like all of us, have been on LinkedIn for a long time. The use I have found for LinkedIn is that when I post an article on LinkedIn, a lot of my colleagues in the company, they read the articles.
Yeah.
So it's a good way for me to communicate with my colleagues. I've written a number of articles on some of the topics we discussed. So you can go on my LinkedIn profile and please connect with me and enjoy my articles and give me some comments. So
Fantastic. Well, Ole, thank you so much for being on the show. It's been such an incredible, insightful, and amazing conversation, very deep, and I appreciate all the personal experience that you have shared with us. Thank you so much.
well, thank you for having me. It's been a great pleasure.
And for you, thank you so much for listening to the episode. And please, as always, leave a review, subscribe, leave a comment. That's the way how we grow the podcast, and we can invite great guests like Ole. So thank you for supporting the show, and see you next time.